Aisha.
Thanks. Going back to the FBI, you said that you don't have enough, or the White House does not have enough independent information to either criticize or to come out with a position on Comey's letter. But then I guess what do you say to the American people if the White House doesn't have enough information to decide whether the letter was appropriate or not? Seemingly the American people are then left with questions about what to believe. There are lots of criticism right now from both sides, or lots of calls from both sides of the aisle asking Director Comey to release more information. Do you feel that the American people don't have a right to more information about this probe? I mean, they are going to the voting booths right now and next Tuesday.
Well, look, Aisha, this is an entirely legitimate question for you to ask, and I think these are the kinds of questions that are being carefully considered at the Department of Justice right now. And given the institutional responsibilities that are vested here at the White House, I just don't have a recommendation to make. It's important for them to make these decisions consistent with their. Let me be more precise here. It's important for officials at the Department of Justice and the FBI to make these decisions consistent with their institutional responsibilities. And as I made reference to earlier, those officials at the Department of Justice and the FBI are given expansive authority and expansive powers to intrude on the privacy of private citizens. And that authority is tempered by long-standing traditions and norms and guidelines that largely avoid extensive public discussion of those investigations. Let me give you an example that I think will resonate with all of you based on your day-to-day responsibilities here at the White House. It is not uncommon for you, when you call the Department of Justice, asking them to even confirm that there's an investigation ongoing, for them to decline to do that. Typically, when you report about the fact that there's an ongoing investigation, that's not based on official confirmation you've received from an official at the Department of Justice. It's based on confirmation you've received from an anonymous official at the Department of Justice who's not willing to speak publicly about the case because it would be improper for them to do so. That, I think, in a way that we all, in a way that reflects the reality of the world that we all work in on a day-to-day basis, I think that underscores the sensitivity of discussing this information. Now, the other thing I think that's important to consider here is there's a tendency to say, with regard to this letter that was written on Friday, to say, well, Congress is independent, and they have their own independent oversight responsibilities to exercise over the Department of Justice. Well, let me say a couple of things about that. The first is the kinds of norms and traditions that limit the public disclosure of investigations don't supersede the oversight responsibilities or requests that are submitted by members of Congress. And the reason for that is simple. Congress is indeed independent of the executive branch, but they're far from impartial. Congress is made up of 535 politicians, Democrats and Republicans. And we've already seen, just in the last 72 hours, the kind of risk that's associated with communicating to them sensitive information. There's one senior Republican official who has already indicated, well, who had previously endorsed the Republican nominee for president, who let it slip that his party was considering impeaching President Clinton even before she's been elected, if she's elected. That's, I think, is a pretty clear indication that Congress is not at all impartial. That's why many of these norms, long-standing norms, that apply even when we're not talking about someone famous and even when we're not talking about an election being a week and a half away, that should apply. And the president believes that these norms are important and worth upholding.
So So the president believes these norms are worth upholding, but it seems like in this case, Comey, these letters, or that's what people are saying, is that these norms weren't upheld. We're talking about an ongoing investigation because a letter was sent. So I guess I'm trying to parse out. So where does the White House stand on that, just as a general issue, having an ongoing investigation that is now being discussed?
And look, this goes to the fact that because we have worked to shield this investigation, given the politically sensitive nature of it, well, frankly, even if it weren't politically sensitive, we would go to great lengths. We would be scrupulous about insulating that independent investigation from even the appearance of political interference. So I don't have any independent knowledge of the investigation or the kinds of decisions that led Director Comey to take the steps that he did to communicate some of this investigation, or some of the material relevant to this investigation, to the Congress and to the public. So again, I'm not in a position to either defend or criticize that decision. That's something that officials at the Department of Justice and the FBI have to do.
So Senator Reid said that the FBI has some explosive information regarding Trump and Russian ties, and there's some, and basically he's accusing the FBI of having a double standard and not releasing information like that, and he and other Democratic lawmakers have called for the FBI to release that information. Does the White House have any position on that? Are you concerned that now you have you have more kind of accusations going around about FBI probes?
Look, as I mentioned before, the White House has not been briefed on the investigation that the Department of Justice and the FBI were conducting into Secretary Clinton's email system. The White House has not been briefed on even the existence of any investigation into the activities or habits of the Republican nominee. These are all questions that should be directed to the Department of Justice and to the FBI. Okay?